else besides me with a USB cable can see this, but at least I'm programmatically accessing the name. And if I change this to, let's say, Rob, notice that now we're seeing Rob's name on the screen as well. Question over here? All right, but we can do better, right? This is the horrible, horrible iOS application, or prob. All right, so let's see how we can do better. So let's borrow some of the same constructs we've been relying on thus far in the language and do something a little more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and first, let's say, declare an NS string pointer called s. And I'm looking at my cheat sheet here so that we produce now live will actually match the sample code that you can download and play with later so that we get this right. And I'm going to declare NS string. And it turns out you don't always have to do alloc and init. A lot of classes, NSString among them, have convenience methods that do the alloc and the init for you. And this is one such method. String with format is a message I can send to the NSString class. It's a class method, and I can very quickly get back a string formatted in a certain way. And I'm going to do hello, comma, %at, close quote, and then I'm going to dynamically plug in self.textfield.text, semicolon. So to recap, what's going on here? On the left-hand side of the equal sign, what is happening? Someone. Yeah. Creating a pointer, 64 bits of memory. It's going to be the address of what kind of object? And a string. Am I instantiating an object? So not yet. Not until the other side, the right-hand side, at which point I'm apparently calling a method called string with format that if I read the documentation will tell me that it's a class method that returns a pointer to an NSString object constructed per that format string. So what do I want to do with this? Well, Xcode, if I click on the exclamation point, it's an unused variable s. I've not done anything interesting. So let's do something a little more sexy. UI alert view. And for those of you with iOS devices, this will look familiar. Pointer, I'm going to call it an alert. And now this is going to look a little messy until I tidy it up. UI alert view, alloc. And now I'm going to init with, this is one hell of a method. All right, so trivia, what's this method called? OK, init with title, message, delegate, cancel button title, other button titles. OK, so it doesn't always read like a sentence, but that is the name of the method. So it's like a method really with multiple arguments. All right, so let's see. Init with title. What do I want the title of this thing to be? Well, let's say finally, close quote. What do I want the message to be? How about s? Because I took the time to construct s in advance. Message delegate. I don't want a delegate yet, so I'm actually going to change this to nil for now. We'll come back to that and what it's doing. Cancel button string. So cancel button string is essentially the dismiss button. So I'm going to go ahead and call this thanks. And other buttons title, I'm going to go ahead and say nil. And other buttons title means if you want more than just one button, this is how you give an array of buttons 2 and 3 and 4 and so forth. Semicolon, save. OK, why is Xcode not happy with me now? I haven't used it yet. I've used s now. So I've solved one exclamation points issue. But if I click on this, it's going to tell me alert is not used because obviously I've not used it. Now this is a mess. It's hard to read. It turns out if you start hitting enter in your code, what Xcode will do is rather anally line things up with the semicolons, as is the convention stylistically in Objective-C. So the IDE will do that for you. And this is, though strange looking, it's a lot more readable than a line that wraps and wraps and wraps. So we'll leave it in this fashion. All right, now what do I want to do? I don't know. I don't remember, but no problem. I know I have a UI alert view object. I'm going to go ahead and click option, get the question mark. OK, the documentation's a little sparse here, so I'm going to click the class reference. And now what can I do with the UI alert view? Well, there's the method that we described very verbosely earlier. Turns out there's some properties, delegate, alert view style, title, message, visible. So we've seen hints of some of those existing. Add buttons with title, number of buttons. What do you like so far? Show. All right, so let's see what show is defined as. Show. So displays the receiver using animation. All right, so it's a really complex way of saying show the alert view. So let's try that. This is an instance method. Returns nothing, so I just have to send a super simple message to my code. So I'm going to go on my new line here and say, how do I send the show message to this object? Just alert show, right? All right, so let's see what now happens. I'm going to click Run. Build succeeded. I'm going to go ahead and type in DAVID. And here we go. Go. Ooh. All right, so now it's a more respectable iOS app. Finally is the title. Hello, David is the string S that I passed in as the message. Thanks is the default cancel buttons icon. Or text rather, and if I click that, it indeed goes away. So I can be a little more anal here. I'd like to make this a little sexier, like when I see that prompt, when I click go, why is the keyboard still there? Right? Like you're seeing it through the translucent button. Let's clean this up. And I would only know this by Googling around a little bit, but what I'm going to do here before we actually display that alert is I'm going to do self.textfield resign first responder. So this is instructive, if only because we've seen this buzzword responder before, first responder, the guy to respond to like a key press. Well, how do you say, I'm done responding? How do you put something away? Well, if I send this message, resign first responder status, to the text field object to which I have a pointer in that property that I declared earlier, I can tell the keyboard, go away. Like the user gave focus to the text field, this effectively blurs the text field. And again, it's not as simple as focus blur. I'd have to read the documentation to know what the message is called. But if I try this now, notice it's a little sexier. DAVID, go, and it goes away because it's resigned its first responder status. If I give focus again to the text field, it comes back, and it now goes away. So there's a bug, though. If I go up here and I type in prob again and hit enter, or even physically go down here, this feels unnatural, right? I shouldn't be forcing the user to hit go, even though they have a return key on the keyboard. So how do we go about capturing that? Well, who might know if and when return is entered? What do I want to wire to what, do you think? Yeah. Yeah, so previously we wired the go button to the go method, but we didn't wire the keyboard, or the text field rather, to that same method. But the text field should surely know when one of its buttons is pressed. So let's see if we can find that. Let me go into the nib file. Let me go ahead and control click on the text field. And oh my goodness, so many different things. And did end on exit, editing change, editing did begin. Unfortunately, if you just rely on the default by clicking control and dragging, you don't get the right event. But what I'm going to do here is I think the one I want is did end on exit. And again, completely unintuitive, but if you read the documentation, you'd see that defined. Let go, select go, and let's see if I remembered right. All right, if I click run, boot this up, I'm going to go ahead and type in RJ this time. And enter. Ah, nice. RJ. Let's do it again. RJ, no periods. Click enter. Finally. And it actually worked. All right, so how did I know this? Well, honestly, it's really by trial and error. Had I done it the other way, first, let's control click. Let's get rid of the X there. Let's just do the default and click and drag, files owner, choose go, on faith, good to go. Not quite, because if I now click here, notice that it's editing did end is the event that's assumed to be the default by Interface Builder, which is not correct. The one I used a moment ago was did end on exit. Again, completely unintuitive, and there's a slight distinction. Editing did end is what gets fired when you take focus away from the text field, but the catch is that hitting enter doesn't technically take focus away. What happens when you hit enter is an event called did end on exit. And I mention this because honestly, the first experience you'll have hands-on in lab and with the first project, there's all these stupid little things that are very easy to trip over, even when you have a super simple application. And I can't emphasize enough when first acclimating to this to really just kind of retrace your steps, go back to the sample code from lecture, figure out what's different between your code and, say, the lecture code, and you'll find that it's just these little tips and tricks that you'll stumble upon so that you don't make those mistakes again the second time around. Yes? Okay. Would it get executed immediately? Ah, very good question. So let's go back to my viewcontroller.m. If I had code executed right here, would it get executed immediately? Short answer, yes. So we can actually think back to our discussions of AJAX. This is an asynchronous call. which means the message show is sent immediately to the alert object, but the next line of code will immediately execute. And it turns out that that message box may actually take a split second to actually appear. So if you want to actually respond to the dismissing of that text, of that alert view, you have to adopt something known as a delegate and use a protocol of sorts. And we'll come back to that in just a moment, and that's, again, much like AJAX. These are asynchronous operations, and we'll have to inform the class if we want it to tell us something in return.